This year marks the 100th anniversary of the final year of World War I, ending in 1918. One way you can learn about what some call the Great War is by visiting the Arvada Center. Philip C. Sneed is the executive director, and he's here to share more about what's being planned. Thanks for stopping by, Philip. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You've been the lead on this massive, over a year and about a year and a half long, right? This film series and lecture that you've put together. Talk about what we can expect.
Well, the Arvada Center for the Arts and Humanities has put together a program looking at World War I and specifically American involvement in World War I through different lenses within arts and humanities. So in addition to the film series, we've got poetry readings, we've had art exhibitions, we've got lectures and book discussion groups, and not only at the Arvada Center, but at other locations around the state. We're partnering with 10 libraries on a book discussion series. We're partnering with Colorado Humanities and the State Poet Laureate and the State Historian. We're partnering with Regis University and Metro State, and so these activities are happening all over the metro area and beyond.
And part of the exhibit is titled, "Where Do We Go From Here?" What's meant by that?
Where Do We Go From Here was the name of a popular song during World War I, but it also, I think, raises an important question about after this war, what happens next? Because we're still living with the effects of World War I. The situation in the Middle East can be traced to how World War I was ended up. Certainly Hitler and World War II were made more possible because of what happened in World War I. So I think the question still needs to be asked, what now? 100 years after this war that changed the global geopolitical situation, changed America's position in the world. What do we do now? Because we're still paying the price, both good and bad, for the decisions that were made then. So what's next?
Arvada Center is also featuring a film series, and it starts this Saturday, if I'm correct, with Lawrence of Arabia. Why that movie?
Well, Lawrence of Arabia, first of all, is one of the greatest movies ever made. It appears as the third best or the fifth best, depending on which list you use. American Film Institute put it number 5 on their all-time best movies list. But it also looks at a slice of the war in the Arabian Peninsula, specifically the adventures of T.E. Lawrence, the British military officer, and his involvement with the campaigns in Palestine and the Sinai Peninsula. So I think even though the movie, like most historical movies or other works, is not entirely accurate, it also gives, I think, insight into the situation in the Middle East today and how we got to be where we are now. And it's just a great film, and it's a great chance to see it on a big screen.
And that's this Saturday at the Arvada Center.
2 p.m.
I also want to mention your book discussion series. Tell me more about that.
Well, we've worked with, we spent a long time whittling down. There are about 25,000 books that have been written about World War I, fiction and nonfiction, and we whittled it down to 6. And we reached out to libraries around the state, most on the Front Range, but as far away as Hayden. And we got their input as well, and we worked with a number of World War I scholars. So we've had books such as Willa Cather's One of Ours, All Quiet on the Western Front, which is a classic about the war. And I should mention that not only was there a book discussion group about that, but we're also showing the 1930 film, All Quiet, which won Best Picture and Best Director. And State Historian Patty Limerick is doing a lecture about the book, All Quiet on the Western Front, using veterans of more recent wars to talk about their post-war experiences. And right now we're reading Vera Britton's Testament of Youth, which was made into a movie a few years ago, and it's a fantastic account from a woman's point of view of the war, a woman who served as a nurse during the war.
My goodness, no wonder why it took you a year and a half to put this together. You really have done your homework. What are some of the World War I theatrical being featured?
Well, one of the things that we're doing is we're taking we're using the acting company that's on contract for our Black Box Repertory Company, and we have created a script that was compiled by Joe Hutchison, who's the State Poet Laureate, using poetry by mostly American poets about World War I and theatricalized it, so actors will be acting out these poems. And there was a great debate about whether America should enter the war or not. And to some extent, this debate was also played out in the poems of the day. So the Pages of Poetry magazine, for example, carried poems that were pro-war and anti-war, and Joe and the director of our Black Box series, Lynn Collins, have theatricalized that. So that's one of the theatrical presentations coming up, and we're looking at some others as well. Fascinating.
I can't wait to check it out. Thank you for giving us a sneak peek, Philip.
You're very welcome.
All right. You can take part in Arvada Center's film series and other activities to commemorate World War I during Where Do We Go From Here? America in the First World War. Now, it's this Saturday, January 13th, starting at 2 p.m. Watch Academy Award-winning film Lawrence of Arabia. For all of that's being planned or featured, please visit this website. Go to arvadacenter.org. That's arvadacenter.org. You can also call 720-898-7200.